In this video, let's look at 6 GHz AP mode, specifically 3 modes introduced, what we call LPI, low power window, and standard power, and very low power. So now most of the countries in the worldwide, when they approve the 6 GHz, they approved a particular mode, what we call low power window. Idea was, 6 GHz frequencies are used in external microwave links and satellite and other sort of connectivities. In that way, 6 GHz Wi-Fi operation should not interfere with that. So that way, to protecting the incumbent operation, most of the countries, they only allowed LPI mode operation. So which means you can deploy 6 GHz AP only in the indoor environment. So there are certain rules introduced as well to minimize these external interferences. That means you cannot use with the external antenna. So you cannot face the access point towards outside. So it has to be always powered from PoE. So that way you have a limited kind of, you have to deploy 6 GHz LPI AP with these restrictions. Now, sometime in indoor environment as well, you need to use some directional antenna, without that, you can't typically get the outcome you need, specifically like high density environment, like warehouses. So in that way, certain vendors basically came up with option integrating a directional antenna inside the access point. In that way, this is not violating the LPI rules. At least you can use this kind of AP model if you have a specific requirement of high densities or special cases. So even the Juniper also came up with the similar kind of access point model. So you can use that if you have a special environment that require directional antenna. The other mode is actually what we call standard power. So now this is where you can deploy 6 GHz in outside the environment. Now, if you look at the diagram, there are like stadiums, like a playground, like a outdoor pool area, those kind of places. If you want to give 6 GHz Wi-Fi, it has to be use standard power operation, which means you have to basically control under some principle called AFC, automated frequency coordination. Before you basically enable your 6 GHz AP outside, you have to check with the AFC provider what are the allowed power level and channel numbers. Then the AFC provider will check the existing incumbent services and then provide a channel and power level that AP can operate. So now this is constantly AP has to at least once a day need to check with the AFC provider whether still this channel and power level is okay to use. If not, you have to turn off your 6 GHz radio. So now this mode of deployment only approved at the moment in US and Canada. So that way rest of the world 6 GHz Wi-Fi is not available. Even the vendors releasing the product, they will specifically turn off the 6 GHz radio if they are outside of US and Canada kind of regulatory. Now the third type of operation, what we call very low power. So now this is the idea in here. This can be deployed indoor, outdoor. No need to go through a AFC kind of coordination. Idea is now we are letting them operate further very low power. That means even the LPI, this power level is basically go below that maximum EIRP. We are allowing like a 14 dBm. So now the use case would be, some AR, VR, those kind of application. You can get large bandwidth, but these are short distance communication. Idea is sometime device to device kind of communication as well, not access point to client devices as such. It may be allowing short distance communication that can facilitate these kind of application. Now you look at, now there are 3 different main mode of operation. So now how does basically, now whenever you deploy in this kind of different AP mode, how does we indicating this AP operating in one mode versus another mode? So normally this information being advertised in an information element called HE operation element. Specifically, if your access point is 6 GHz supported, this element will have a 6 GHz operation element component. So inside that, you will see there's a control field available in this particular 6 GHz operation element. If you look at here, you can see it has a control field. In that control field, you can see it has something called regulatory info. So now, depending on this particular regulatory info value, you can see here, it's basically, if it's a LPI, we put this value to 0. So if it is a standard power, this value will be 1. If it is a very low power, value will be 2. In that way, now in the 2024 IEEE update, they have expanded that, to include certain indoor standard power as well. Typically, we said standard power will be used outdoor deployment, but I think they are planning to basically allowing use indoor access point, indoor standard power access point in the indoor deployment as well. To identify that's the indoor standard power, they have give a value number 8. So like that, you can see, by looking at this particular value, client also understand this AP operating in a particular mode. Now let's look at, those detail in Wireshark. I have a couple of packet captures. So now if you go through my sort of a profile, so in here, there's something called 6 GHz specific. If you have a packet capture, if you want to see the LPI kind of AP operation, you can select 6 GHz LPI. So that will filter, a beacon frame that including that regulated information bit set to 0. So now in here, I have a couple of access point, operating. This is a ubiquity access point. If you go to the tag parameters, so typically, you have a HE operations and HE capability element, the operational detail advertised in the operation element. If you're expanding that, if this is a 6 GHz AP, you will see this 6 GHz operation information. That's the information we need to look for. Now in here, if you expanded that, you can see the primary channel 53 and the control field will be available. So now it has a regulatory info bit set to 4-bit value set to 0. So now this is indicating, this AP is in the LPI mode of operation. Now even this capture, you will have many different kind of other access point SSIDs as well. Those also 6 GHz specific. Now if you look at this is Cisco access point, again in that one, if you check, you can see under HE operation, 6 GHz element is there. So if you expanded that, control field set to regulatory info 0. So now if you look at the same information in outdoor kind of packet capture, standard power packet capture. So now this is a packet capture, so now in here, if you look at the beacon frame, you can filter by SP outdoor, which is the regulatory information bit value set to 1. So that way now in here, if you again look at the same information element under HE operation, 6 GHz operation element, in the control kind of field, you can see the regulatory info set to 1. So now this is indicating this AP is a standard power, typically outdoor deployment. In future, if a standard power access point allowed to deploy indoor, that will have a value number 8 here. Okay, that's a sort of what IEEE specified. So in that way, client will differentiate. It is an indoor standard power access point versus outdoor standard power access point. So now this is how you can find that detail in a packet capture. But in here I have given the value for the VLP as well, but value number 3, and standard power Indo value number 8. But these are not, like at the moment packet captures, maybe, like I haven't really seen any deployment of those. In that way, if you find anything interesting when you're testing or something like that, specifically if you are working with this kind of operating mode, probably let me know, at least give me a PCAP as long as you're happy to share. I'm happy to update my blog post and adding that capture there. So that's how you basically analyze, understand different AP mode in 6 GHz operation in a Wireshark. So now, what is the importance of this in the practical deployment point of view? Now in 6 GHz, there are several type of device classes. Now just to summarize that, like sometime AP, you can see can act as a indoor access point, or it can operate as a outdoor access point. So now there are two different device classes. What we call 6ID is an indoor access point, and 6SD is called outdoor access point. So sometime in the indoor point of view, 6 GHz operating the low power mode, it may not give a good coverage like 5 GHz. In that way, sometime you expect to adding some extenders like a subordinate kind of access point. So those have a different device class as well, 6PP. So now, main client devices point of view, your end device like a smartphone, tablet, they can have a classification what we call indoor client. Classification is 6XD. Ideally, this client only able to connect to indoor access point directly or through a subordinate AP. So now, there's another type of client devices called 6CD, which is dual client. They can connect to the indoor AP as well as outdoor access point, standard power access point. So this is the client type nowadays you should see mostly, unless that particular device came 3-4 years before, around 2021, 2022. Ideally, your device should be able to understand this standard power operation and indoor AP operation, LPI operation. Specifically, if it is manufactured for the US at the moment, they have the both type of AP mode of operation in place. Now, outdoor client perspective, you can have a client type called standard client 6FX, so which can only connect to the outdoor standard power access point. But if you have a fixed client, not a mobile client, then this client has to go through the AFC kind of rules. In that way, this client is under the AFC kind of control, so they also can only connect to the outdoor access point. So in that way, now if you're deploying these 6 GHz AP in the standard power, probably check with your client devices. Sometime if your client device is a bit of an older 6 GHz client, this may be an indoor client 6XD. In that way, this client may not understand what is the standard power operation. So that way, I would highly recommend, do more testing and see whether your client devices understand the these standard power and LPI operation both. Ideally, that's what your client should be, like a 6CD client. But sometime if a client device is older, it may be not able to understand standard power operation. So I hope this video make you educational, understanding a little bit more about 6 GHz. I'll see you in another video.